Claire Whitmore thought she had it all figured out. The perfect career, the polished life, the careful control over every detail. But one terrifying night on a dark highway would shatter everything she believed about herself. When a stranger pulled over to help her broken-down car, she made a split-second judgment that would haunt her for weeks to come. What she didn't know was that the man she feared would soon become the man who saved her life, and possibly her soul. This is a story about the assumptions we carry, the courage it takes to face our own prejudice, and whether love can truly heal the wounds we inflict on each other. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're from, because this journey of redemption and second chances is one you won't want to miss. Claire Whitmore pressed her thumb against the steering wheel, feeling the leather give slightly under the pressure. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, a gray ribbon cutting through brown fields that hadn't seen rain in weeks. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder for the third time in 10 minutes. She didn't look at it. The meeting had gone fine. Better than fine, actually. The client had signed the contract without a single objection, nodding along as she'd walked them through the quarterly projections. She'd smiled at the right moments, laughed at their jokes, promised to follow up by Friday. Professional, polished, perfect. So why did her chest feel tight? She turned up the radio, letting a pop song fill the silence. The lyrics were meaningless. Something about dancing and forgetting and living for the weekend. She'd forgotten what weekends felt like. There was always another presentation to prepare, another report to review, another reason to stay late at the office while everyone else went home to their families. The sun sat lower now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Pretty, she supposed. She'd stopped noticing things like sunsets somewhere along the way. There was always somewhere to be, someone waiting, something urgent demanding her attention. Her phone buzzed again. This time she glanced at it. Her mother. Claire sighed and let it go to voicemail. They'd had the same conversation 3 times this week already. Are you eating enough? Are you sleeping? When are you coming to visit? You work too hard, sweetheart. You need to slow down. But slowing down meant thinking, and thinking meant feeling, and feeling. The car lurched. Claire's hands tightened on the wheel as the engine coughed, sputtered, then caught again. Her stomach dropped. The dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. Check engine, battery, oil. Lights she'd been ignoring for 2 weeks because there was never time to take the car to the shop. No, no, no! She pressed the gas pedal. The car responded with another violent shudder. Come on, please. The engine died. She coasted to the shoulder, gravel crunching under the tires as the car rolled to a stop. For a moment, she just sat there, hands still gripping the wheel, staring at the dashboard like it might suddenly spring back to life. It didn't. Perfect. She dropped her forehead against the steering wheel. Just perfect. Cars whipped past on the highway, their speed making her vehicle rock slightly. The sun was dropping faster now, shadows stretching long across the empty fields. She lifted her head and looked around. No gas station in sight. No exit ramp. Just highway and fields and the growing dark. Her phone showed 2 bars of service. Could be worse. She pulled up her roadside assistance app and requested help, watching the little loading circle spin. 5 minutes passed. 10. Finally, a message appeared. Estimated wait time, 90 minutes. 90 minutes. The sun would be gone in an hour. Claire got out of the car, her heels unsteady on the gravel. The air was cooler than she'd expected, carrying the smell of dust and exhaust. She walked to the front of the car, popped the hood, though she had no idea what she was looking for, and stared at the engine like it might explain itself. It didn't. She got back in the car and locked the doors. Through the windshield, The sky continued its slow fade from orange to purple. Traffic thinned. The minutes crawled by, each one making her more aware of how alone she was out here. How vulnerable. She scrolled through her phone, not really reading anything. Work emails, a text from Hannah asking if she'd made it home okay. Another missed call from her mother. She should call someone, tell someone where she was. But what would she say? I'm fine, just stranded on the side of the highway because I couldn't find time to take care of my car. It would sound like what it was. Another example of how she'd let everything slide in favor of work that didn't actually need her as much as she pretended it did. Headlights appeared in her rearview mirror. Claire watched as a pickup truck slowed, then pulled onto the shoulder behind her. Her shoulders tensed. The truck's engine idled for a moment before shutting off. Don't get out, she thought. Just keep driving. I'm fine. Help is coming. But the driver's door opened. A man stepped out, and Claire's breath caught. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing work clothes stained with grease. Black. Her fingers moved to the door lock, checking it twice, even though she'd already locked it. Her other hand found her phone, thumb hovering over the emergency call button. He walked toward her car, moving slowly, hands visible. When he reached her window, he stopped a few feet back and raised one hand in a small wave. Everything okay? His voice was muffled through the glass, but clear enough. Calm, even gentle. Claire cracked the window an inch. I'm fine. Roadside assistance is on the way. Your hood's up. He gestured toward the front of her car. Engine trouble? It's being handled. Her voice came out sharper than she'd intended. Thank you. He studied her for a moment, and something shifted in his expression. Not anger, something quieter. Sadder, maybe. He took a step back. I'm Marcus. I work for Davidson's roadside repair. He pulled a badge from his pocket and held it up. The fading light made it hard to read, but she could make out a logo and photo. I was heading home from a call when I saw you pulled over. Figured I'd check if you needed help. Claire's grip on her phone tightened. He seemed legitimate, professional, but her mother's voice echoed in her head. You can't be too careful, sweetheart, especially out there alone. I appreciate it, but I've already called for help. She forced something like a smile. Should be here soon. Marcus nodded slowly. He glanced up the highway, then back at her. The sun had nearly disappeared now, leaving them in that gray in-between light where everything looked uncertain. How long did they say? He asked. An hour, maybe less. Mind if I take a quick look? Might be something. Simple I can fix right here. Save you the wait. Every instinct told her to say no, to keep the window closed and wait for the official help she'd requested. But another part of her, the practical part that had gotten her through college and into a career she'd built from nothing, recognized that sitting here for another hour in the growing dark wasn't smart either. I'd rather wait, she said. He absorbed this without reaction. Understood. But I'm not comfortable leaving you out here alone. It's getting dark, and this isn't the safest stretch of highway. He gestured to a spot 20 feet away. How about I wait in my truck until help arrives? I won't bother you. Just want to make sure you're okay. There was something in his voice. Not pushy or insistent, just matter of fact. Like he'd made a decision and was simply stating it. Claire wanted to argue, to tell him it wasn't necessary, but the truth was, the idea of sitting here completely alone made her stomach knot. Fine. The word came out clipped. But you don't need to stay. I'm sure you have somewhere to be. Nowhere that can't wait. He walked back to his truck and climbed in, leaving the door slightly ajar. True to his word, he didn't move toward her again. Just sat there, a silent presence in her rearview mirror. Claire watched him through the mirror, her heart still beating too fast. She opened her phone's camera and, as discreetly as she could, took a photo of his truck, the license plate, him, just in case. Her finger hovered over Hannah's contact. She should text someone his information, tell someone where she was and who was here. She typed out a message. Car broke down on I-40. Man stopped to help, staying in truck behind me. Here's his plate number. She attached the photo but didn't hit send. Not yet, because sending it felt like an accusation and he hadn't actually done anything wrong. He was just sitting there, waiting, like he'd promised. But her mother's warnings wouldn't stop, echoing. All those news stories, all those times she'd been told to be careful, to trust her instincts, to protect herself. Her instinct right now was screaming that being alone on a dark highway with a strange man was dangerous, even though he'd done nothing but offer help, even though he'd stepped back when she'd asked, even though he was still keeping his distance. Minutes ticked by. The sky turned from purple to black, stars beginning to appear overhead. Claire kept her eyes on the rearview mirror. Marcus hadn't moved, hadn't gotten out of the truck, hadn't approached her again. He was just there, a shadow in the darkness, doing exactly what he'd said he'd do. Traffic was sparse now, only occasional cars passing at high speed. The temperature dropped, and Claire wrapped her arms around herself. She should have brought a jacket, should have filled the gas tank this morning, should have taken the car in when the first warning light appeared. A semi roared past, making her car rock in its wake. She gripped the armrest, steadying herself. When she looked up again, Marcus was still there in his truck, still waiting, still silent. Her phone buzzed. The roadside assistance app updated. Estimated wait time, 60 minutes. She closed her eyes and leaned back against the headrest. This was going to be a long night. Behind her, Marcus sat in his truck and stared at the dark fields stretching out beside the highway. His hands rested on the steering wheel, fingers drumming a quiet rhythm. He'd seen the way she'd looked at him, the way her hand had gone straight to the door lock, the way her whole body had tensed when he'd approached. He'd seen it before, too many times to count. Part of him wanted to start the truck and drive away. Let her wait for her roadside assistance alone. She'd made it clear she didn't trust him, didn't want him here. He didn't owe her anything. Didn't owe anyone anything, really, except himself and the promise he'd made years ago to always do the right thing even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. So he stayed. A car approached from behind, headlights bright in his mirrors. Marcus watched it draw closer, noticed the way it drifted slightly between lanes. His stomach tightened. Something was off about the way it moved. Too fast, too erratic. He sat up straighter, eyes locked on the approaching vehicle. It was still accelerating, crossing the center line and jerking back. The driver wasn't paying attention, or couldn't pay attention. Drunk, maybe, or distracted, and they were heading straight for Claire's car. No! Marcus threw open his door and jumped out. Hey! But the car didn't slow, didn't swerve. It left the highway completely, tires hitting gravel, heading directly for the stalled vehicle on the shoulder. Marcus ran. His boots pounded against the ground, heart hammering, everything narrowing to a single point. Claire's car, the approaching headlights, the seconds ticking away too fast. He reached her door and yanked it open. Get out! Now! Claire's eyes went wide with shock, then fear. But something in his voice must have broken through because she moved, unbuckling her seatbelt and scrambling out. Marcus grabbed her arm and pulled her away from the car, away from the highway, into the field as metal shrieked behind them. The impact was deafening. Claire's car lurched forward, crumpling like paper as the other vehicle crashed into it. Glass exploded. Metal scraped against metal. The sound echoed across the empty fields, sharp and terrible. Marcus felt Claire's knees buckle, and he caught her, both of them sinking to the ground several feet from the wreckage. She was shaking, her breath coming in short gasps. "You're okay," he said, though his own hands were trembling. "You're okay." She didn't respond, just stared at what used to be her car, now mangled and smoking on the shoulder. The other car had spun sideways, coming to rest half on the highway, half in the dirt. Its horn was blaring, stuck on from the impact. Marcus forced himself to stand. "Stay here." He ran to the other car. The driver was slumped over the steering wheel, unconscious but breathing. Marcus could smell alcohol even before he opened the door. He checked for serious injuries, found none that were obvious, and pulled out his phone to call 911. His voice was steady as he gave the dispatcher the details, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. 2 minutes. Maybe less. That's how close it had been. If he'd left when she'd asked him to? If he'd decided her fear was reason enough to drive away? He walked back to Claire. She was still on the ground, arms wrapped around her knees, staring at nothing. He knelt down a few feet away, giving her space. "Help's coming," he said quietly. "Few minutes, probably." She didn't acknowledge him, didn't move, just sat there, trembling in the dark. In the distance, sirens began to wail. The next 20 minutes passed in a blur of flashing lights and urgent voices. 2 police cars arrived first, followed by an ambulance and a fire truck. Claire stood off to the side, wrapped in a blanket someone had draped over her shoulders, watching emergency workers swarm the scene. Her legs felt disconnected from her body. Her thoughts kept circling the same moment. Marcus's hand on her arm, pulling her away. The sound of metal crushing metal behind them. 1 second later, and she would have been inside that car. A young officer with kind eyes approached her, notebook in hand. "Ma'am, I need to ask you a few questions." Claire nodded, but couldn't quite make her voice work. "Can you tell me what happened?" She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "My car broke down. I was waiting for roadside assistance." The words felt strange, too simple for what had just happened. Marcus, he pulled me out, right before—" Her throat closed. She couldn't finish. The officer nodded gently. "The gentleman in the work truck? He called it in. Probably saved your life." He glanced over at Marcus, who was talking to another officer near his truck. "You're very lucky he was here." Lucky. The word sat wrong in Claire's chest. She watched Marcus gesture toward the wreckage, explaining something to the officer. His voice was calm, measured, walking them through the sequence of events. Even from a distance, she could see how composed he was. Like pulling someone from a car seconds before impact was just another Tuesday. The officer asked her a few more questions. Her name, address, insurance information. Claire answered automatically, her mind somewhere else entirely. On that moment when she'd locked her door, when she'd taken his photo like he was a threat, when she'd made it clear she didn't trust him, didn't want him near her, and then he'd saved her life anyway. The officer closed his notebook. "You'll need to follow up with your insurance company. We'll have the report ready in a few days." He paused. "Do you have someone who can pick you up? You shouldn't drive tonight." Claire pulled out her phone with shaking hands. The screen was cracked. She hadn't even noticed when it happened, but it still worked. 3 missed calls from her mother, 2 from Hannah, a dozen texts asking if she was okay. "I can call someone," she said. The officer nodded and walked away. Claire stood there, blanket pulled tight around her shoulders, staring at her phone. Her mother would come, would ask 1,000 questions Claire didn't have answers for, would make this into something bigger than it already was. Hannah would be better. Hannah would just come and not ask anything until Claire was ready to talk. She was typing out a text when movement caught her eye. Marcus was walking toward his truck, done with his statement. He moved slowly, like he was tired. No, not tired, drained. Like whatever adrenaline had carried him through the last hour was finally wearing off. Claire's feet moved before her brain caught up. Wait. He stopped, turned. Under the harsh glare of the emergency lights, she could see his face clearly for the first time. Strong features, dark eyes that held something she couldn't name. Not anger, not judgment, just a quiet sadness that made her chest ache. I need to... She stopped, started again. Thank you for what you did. You saved my life. You don't need to thank me. His voice was gentle but distant, like he was speaking to someone he didn't know and didn't expect to know. I'm glad you're safe. But I do need to thank you. I was... The words stuck in her throat, ugly and true. I was rude to you. I didn't trust you. And you stayed anyway. You could have left, and you didn't. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. You were scared. That's okay. It's not okay. The words came out sharper than she intended. You were trying to help and I treated you like... She couldn't say it. Couldn't name what she'd done. But Marcus could. Like I was dangerous. The word hung between them, heavy and undeniable. Claire felt heat rise to her cheeks. I'm sorry. He nodded slowly, not quite accepting, just acknowledging. It's late. You should call someone to pick you up. I will, She didn't know what she was trying to say. That she felt horrible? That shame was crawling through her veins like poison? That she couldn't stop seeing the moment when she'd checked her door locks, when her fear had been written all over her face, when she'd made assumptions that had nothing to do with him and everything to do with the color of his skin? Marcus saved her from having to find the words. Take care of yourself, Miss Whitmore. He walked to his truck, climbed in, and drove away. No anger in his movements. No triumph at having been proven right. Just quiet dignity that somehow made Claire feel worse than any accusation could have. She stood there, watching his taillights disappear into the darkness, and finally let herself feel the full weight of what had happened. Not just the accident. Everything before it. Claire's apartment felt too quiet. She'd texted Hannah, who'd arrived within 30 minutes, and driven her home without asking a single question. Just kept one hand on Claire's knee the whole drive, steady and present. When they'd pulled up to Claire's building, Hannah had asked if she wanted company. Claire had said no. She needed to be alone. Now she wasn't so sure that had been the right choice. She sat on her couch, still wearing the clothes she'd worn to the meeting. They smelled like smoke and fear. She should shower. Should eat something. Should call her mother back. Should do a lot of things. Instead, she sat in the dark and replayed everything. The moment Marcus had approached her car. The way her hand had immediately gone to the lock. The way she'd cracked the window barely an inch, like he might reach through and grab her. The way she'd taken his photo, documenting him like evidence. Evidence of what? Of a man offering help? Of someone trying to do a kind thing? Her phone buzzed. Her mother again. Claire let it go to voicemail, listening to the muffled sound of her mother's worried voice through the speaker. Sweetheart, I heard about the accident on the news. Are you okay? Please call me back. I'm worried. Claire deleted the message without listening to the whole thing. She knew what her mother would say if she told her everything. Would probably praise her for being careful, for locking her doors, for trusting her instincts. Would tell her she'd done the right thing, that you never know, that it's better to be safe than sorry. But safe from what? Marcus hadn't threatened her, hadn't raised his voice, hadn't done anything except offer help and then keep his word to wait at a distance. And she'd treated him like a criminal? Because he was black. The thought made her stomach turn. She wanted to deny it, to find some other reason for her fear. But there wasn't one. If Marcus had been white, if he'd been wearing a polo shirt instead of work clothes, if he'd driven a sedan instead of a pickup truck, would she have reacted the same way? She knew the answer. Hated that she knew the answer. Claire pulled out her phone and opened the photo she'd taken. Marcus standing beside his truck, unaware he was being documented like a suspect. She stared at it for a long time, shame burning through her. Then she pulled up Google and typed, Davidson's Roadside Repair. The website was simple, professional. A family-owned business, been around for 20 years. Photos of the crew. Marcus was there, smiling in a group shot, arms crossed, looking capable and kind. Customer reviews that praised their honesty, their speed, their fair prices. Marcus went above and beyond when my car died on Route 9. He was professional, kind, and got me back on the road in no time. Can't recommend him enough. Best roadside service I've ever used. Marcus especially was so patient with my questions and didn't make me feel stupid for not knowing anything about cars. These guys are the real deal. Marcus stayed with me for over an hour waiting for a part to arrive. Didn't charge me extra. Just good people. Good people. Claire closed her phone and pressed the heels of her hands against her eyes. This wasn't who she thought she was. She voted for the right candidates, donated to the right causes, considered herself open-minded and aware. But when it mattered, when she was actually faced with a real person in a real situation, she'd failed every test she didn't even know she was taking. The worst part was that Marcus had known. She'd seen it in his face, that flash of recognition when she'd locked her door. He'd understood exactly what was happening and had chosen to stay anyway. Had kept his distance, honored her fear, and then saved her life despite it. She didn't deserve that kindness. Sleep didn't come that night. Claire lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows move across the plaster. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the moment of impact, heard the sound of metal crushing, felt Marcus's hand on her arm, pulling her to safety. By the time dawn broke, she'd made a decision. She had to find him, had to apologize properly. Not the rushed, inadequate words she'd stammered out last night, but a real apology. One that acknowledged what she'd done and didn't ask for anything in return. She owed him that much. The next morning, Claire called Davidson's Roadside Repair. The phone rang 3 times before someone picked up. Davidson's, this is Sheila. Hi, Claire's carefully prepared words evaporated. I need to speak with Marcus Reed. He's out on a call right now, honey. Can I take a message? No, Claire pressed her fingers against her forehead. I need to see him, in person. When will he be back? There was a pause. Can I ask what this is about? Claire closed her eyes. He helped me last night. On the highway, there was an accident. I just need to thank him properly. Oh! Sheila's voice warmed immediately. You're the woman from the accident. Marcus mentioned it this morning, said it was pretty scary. Another pause. He should be back at the shop around noon for lunch. You can catch him then if you want. Thank you. Claire's hand tightened on the phone. What's the address? She wrote it down, thanked Sheila again, and hung up. Then she sat on her couch and waited for the hours to pass. At 11:30, she got in her rental car. The insurance company had arranged it that morning, and drove to the address Sheila had given her. The shop was on the edge of town, a low building with 3 garage bays and a small parking lot. 2 trucks were parked outside, both bearing the Davidson's logo. Claire pulled in and sat there for a moment, gathering courage. Through the front window, she could see someone moving around inside. Not Marcus. Someone older, with gray hair and coveralls. She got out of the car and walked to the front door. A bell chimed as she pushed it open. The older man looked up from behind the counter and smiled. Help you? I'm looking for Marcus Reed. He's in the back. Should be out in a minute. The man studied her curiously. You the woman from last night? Word traveled fast, apparently. Yes. The man's smile widened. He came around the counter and stuck out his hand. Bill Davidson, owner. Marcus is one of my best guys. Has been for 6 years now. He shook her hand firmly. Glad you're all right. Sounded like it was a close call. Very close. Claire's throat felt tight. He saved my life. That sounds like Marcus. Bill gestured toward a small waiting area with plastic chairs and old magazines. Have a seat. He shouldn't be long. Claire sat, hands folded in her lap, eyes on the door to the garage. Minutes ticked by. The bell over the door chimed as a customer came in to pick up their car. Bill chatted with them easily, laughing at some joke Claire didn't hear. Then the door to the garage opened, and Marcus walked through. He was wiping his hands on a rag, eyes down, saying something over his shoulder to someone still in the garage. When he looked up and saw Claire, he stopped mid-sentence. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Marcus folded the rag carefully and walked to the counter. Bill, I'm taking my lunch break. Sure thing. Bill glanced between them with poorly concealed curiosity. Take your time. Marcus gestured toward the door. You want to talk outside? Claire nodded and followed him out into the parking lot. He led her to a small picnic table near the side of the building, shaded by a scraggly tree. They sat across from each other, the table between them like a buffer. How are you feeling? Marcus asked. His voice was polite, distant, the same tone he'd used last night. I'm okay. A little sore. Mostly just... Claire stopped, forced herself to be honest. Shaken up. He nodded. That's normal. Takes a while to process something like that. Marcus, She gripped the edge of the table. I need to apologize. Really apologize. Not the half-hearted thing I said last night. For how I treated you. For locking my door and taking your photo and making you feel like you were dangerous when all you were trying to do was help. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. You were scared. It's dark highway, you're alone, a stranger approaches, I get it. But you weren't a stranger who happened to be black. You were a black stranger, and that's why I was scared. She met his eyes, forced herself not to look away. I'm not going to pretend it was anything else. That's not fair to you, and it's not honest. Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Not quite softening, but some of the guardedness eased. I appreciate you saying that. I thought I was better than that. Claire's voice cracked. I really did, but when it mattered, I wasn't, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Marcus studied her face, like he was trying to figure out if she meant it. Finally, he sighed. Apology accepted. Just like that? Just like that. He leaned back, arms crossed. You're not the first person to react that way to me. Won't be the last. At some point, You either let it destroy you, or you accept that people carry their fears, and you can't control that. You can only control how you respond. By saving them anyway? A small, sad smile touched his lips. By trying to be the person I want to be, not the person they assume I am. The simplicity of it made Claire's chest ache. That's not fair to you. No. Marcus's smile faded. It's not, but life isn't fair, so you deal with it. They sat in silence for a moment. A car drove past on the street, radio playing something cheerful and completely at odds with the heaviness between them. Can I ask you something? Claire said quietly. Sure. Why did you stay? Last night, I mean. I made it clear I didn't want you there. You could have left. Marcus looked out toward the street, jaw working like he was choosing his words carefully. Because leaving you alone on that highway didn't sit right with me. Didn't matter if you wanted me there or not. It mattered that you were safe. He glanced back at her. That's just how I was raised. You help people when they need it. Simple as that. It's not simple, though. Not when helping means putting yourself in a situation where someone's already judging you. No, he agreed. It's not simple, but it's still the right thing to do. Claire didn't know what to say to that. This man, this stranger she'd feared and documented and treated like a threat, had more grace in his little finger than she'd managed in 28 years. I don't know how to make this right, she said finally. You already did. Marcus stood, signaling the conversation was over. You apologized. You were honest about it. That's more than most people do. He offered his hand. No hard feelings, Miss Whitmore. Claire stood and shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and then gone. Professional, distant. Exactly what she deserved. Take care of yourself, Marcus said, and walked back toward the shop. Claire stood by the picnic table and watched him go, feeling like she'd just been given something precious, and also like she'd lost something she'd never had in the first place. 3 days passed before Claire went back. She told herself she wasn't going back, that she'd apologized. Marcus had accepted, and that was the end of it. They were even. Square. She could move on with her life and let him move on with his. But her mind wouldn't let it go. She kept thinking about the way he'd said, no hard feelings, like he'd said it before. Like he'd had to forgive this specific thing so many times it had become routine. She thought about the sadness in his eyes, the careful way he'd kept distance between them, even after accepting her apology. And she thought about who she wanted to be versus who she'd actually been in that moment on the highway. On Friday afternoon, she found herself pulling into Davidson's parking lot again. No plan this time. No speech prepared. Just a vague sense that walking away felt wrong. The bell chimed as she entered. Bill looked up from his computer and grinned. Well, hello again. Marcus is out on a call, but he should be back in about 20 minutes if you want to wait. Claire hesitated. Actually, maybe I could just leave something for him? Sure thing. Bill slid a notepad across the counter. Claire stared at the blank page. What was she supposed to write? Thanks again for saving my life. Sorry again for being racist. Hope you have a nice weekend. No, that wasn't right. She clicked the pen, clicked it again. Finally, wrote, I know you said no hard feelings, but I'd like to buy you dinner. As a proper thank you. No pressure. My number is below if you're interested. Claire. She folded the note, wrote Marcus's name on the outside, and slid it across the counter before she could change her mind. Bill tucked it into a cubby behind the counter. I'll make sure he gets it. Thanks. Claire turned to leave, then paused. Bill, can I ask you something? Shoot. What kind of person is Marcus? I mean, I know what happened on the highway, but what's he like? Bill leaned back in his chair, considering. Marcus is solid. Most reliable guy I've got. Shows up early, stays late if someone needs help. Customers ask for him by name. He smiled. Good sense of humor once you get to know him. Quiet but not shy. Just thoughtful. Thinks before he talks. I like that about him. He seems like a good person. He is. Bill's expression grew more serious. Had some tough breaks in his life. Handled them with more grace than most people would. That tells you something about character. Claire nodded slowly. Thanks for telling me. She drove home feeling like she'd just taken a test she hadn't studied for and wasn't sure she'd passed. Marcus found the note when he got back to the shop. Bill handed it to him with a knowing look that Marcus ignored. He read it quickly, folded it, and stuck it in his pocket. She seems nice, Bill said. Marcus didn't respond. I'm just saying. I know what you're saying. Marcus headed toward the garage. I've got the Morrison truck to finish. Marcus. Bill. Marcus stopped, turned. I appreciate the concern, but I'm not interested. In dinner or in her? Both. Bill held up his hands. All right, your call. Just thought it was a nice gesture. It was a nice gesture. That was the problem. Marcus spent the rest of the afternoon under the Morrisons' truck, replacing brake pads and trying not to think about Claire Whitmore's note. But his mind kept circling back to it. No pressure, she'd written. Like that made it simple. Nothing about this was simple. At 6 o'clock, Marcus clocked out and headed to his apartment. It was a small place, 1 bedroom, barely furnished, but clean and quiet. He'd lived there for 4 years and still hadn't hung anything on the walls. Never saw the point. Home was just where you slept between shifts. He heated up leftover pasta, ate standing at the counter, and tried to watch TV. But his attention kept drifting to his phone sitting on the coffee table. Claire's number was still in the note in his pocket. He could text her. Say thanks, but no thanks. Keep it polite and final. Or he could just not respond at all. Let the silence speak for itself. Or, no, he wasn't going to consider that option. Dinner was a bad idea for about 100 different reasons, starting with the fact that she'd been terrified of him 5 days ago, and ending with the fact that he'd learned a long time ago not to make himself vulnerable to people who saw him as a threat first and a person second. His phone buzzed. Tom's name appeared on the screen. Bar? Need to vent about the Stevenson job. Marcus smiled despite himself. Tom could make drama out of anything. Be there in 20, he texted back. The bar was a dive called Mickey's, tucked between a laundromat and a tax preparation office. Dark wood, dim lights, smell of beer and fried food. Tom was already at their usual table, nursing a beer and looking aggrieved. They want me to come back tomorrow, Tom announced before Marcus even sat down. Said the transmission's making a noise. I literally just replaced the transmission. Maybe it's something else. It's not something else. They just don't want to pay the bill. Tom took a long drink. How was your week? Marcus ordered a beer from the waitress and settled into his chair. Had an interesting call on Monday? He told Tom the story. The highway, the woman, the accident, the apology. Tom listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker as Marcus talked. So let me get this straight, Tom said when Marcus finished. This woman treats you like you're about to rob her, you save her life, and now she wants to buy you dinner? That's the summary. And you're considering it? I didn't say that. Tom gave him a look. You're here telling me about it instead of just throwing the note away. You're considering it. Marcus didn't answer. The waitress brought his beer, and he took a long drink, buying time. Marcus? Tom's voice was serious now, the humor gone. You can't keep doing this? Doing what? Making excuses for people who disrespect you. She was scared of you because you're black. Full stop. Now she feels guilty and wants to make herself feel better, and you're actually thinking about helping her do that. She apologized. A real apology. Not one of those, I'm sorry you felt that way things. Okay, so she apologized. That's the bare minimum. Doesn't mean you owe her dinner and absolution. Tom leaned forward. Man, how many times have we had this conversation? How many times have you bent over backward trying to make white people comfortable with the fact that you exist? It's exhausting just watching you do it. Marcus set his beer down carefully. What do you want me to say? That I'm angry? I am. That it hurt? It did. But staying angry doesn't change anything. All it does is make me bitter, and I've seen what that does to people. I won't let it do that to me. There's a difference between letting go of anger and letting people walk all over you. I know that. Do you? Tom's voice softened. Because from where I'm sitting, you're about to have dinner with someone who is ready to call the cops on you for the crime of offering to help. That's not grace, Marcus. That's just sad. The word landed like a punch. Marcus looked away, jaw tight. I'm not trying to hurt you, Tom said. I'm trying to protect you. You're a good person. Maybe the best person I know, but that doesn't mean you have to put yourself in situations where people treat you like a threat and then expect you to be grateful when they realize you're human. I don't expect anything. I know, that's the problem. They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, the bar hummed with Friday night energy, laughter, clinking glasses, the crack of pool balls. Normal life happening while Marcus tried to figure out what the right choice was. What if she's different? He said quietly. What if she actually wants to learn, to do better? Then she can do that without making you her teacher. Tom finished his beer and signaled for another. But if you really want to have dinner with her, I won't stop you. Just protect yourself, okay? Don't go in expecting her to suddenly see you clearly. People don't change that fast. I know? Do you? Marcus didn't answer. He wasn't sure he did. Claire didn't expect Marcus to respond. Saturday passed, then Sunday. She checked her phone compulsively, hope and dread tangled together in her chest. By Monday morning, she'd convinced herself he'd thrown the note away, and that was probably for the best. Then her phone buzzed during her lunch break. This is Marcus. Dinner is fine, but somewhere quiet. Don't need people watching. Her heart jumped. She typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on. How about Rosie's on Oak Street? Wednesday at 7? Works for me. See you then. Claire stared at the messages for a long moment, then called Hannah. He said yes. To what? To dinner. I asked Marcus to dinner, and he said yes. There was a pause. The man from the highway? The one you... Yes. Claire pressed her hand to her forehead. What am I doing, Hannah? This is crazy, right? I should cancel. I should... breathe. Hannah's voice was calm, practical. Why did you ask him to dinner? To thank him. To apologize properly. I don't know. Claire, why did you really ask him? Claire was quiet for a moment. Because I keep thinking about him, about what he said, about how he stayed, even though I made it clear I didn't trust him. I want to understand that. I want to understand him. Okay, so go to dinner. Listen. Don't try to make yourself feel better. Just listen. What if I mess it up? Then you mess it up, but at least you tried. Hannah paused. And Claire? Don't go into this thinking one dinner fixes anything. You hurt him. That doesn't go away because you buy him a meal. I know. Do you? It was the second time someone had asked her that question this week. Claire wasn't sure she had a good answer. Wednesday came too fast and too slow at the same time. Claire changed outfits 3 times before settling on something simple. Jeans and a nice blouse. Not too formal, not too casual. She arrived at Rosie's 15 minutes early and sat in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to calm her racing heart. At 5 minutes to 7, she went inside. Rosie's was exactly what Marcus had asked for. Small, quiet, tucked away on a side street. Mismatched furniture, local art on the walls, soft jazz playing from speakers Claire couldn't see. Maybe a dozen tables total, half of them empty. She got a table in the back corner and ordered water with shaking hands. At 7 exactly, Marcus walked in. He was wearing jeans and a button-down shirt, looking somehow both comfortable and guarded. His eyes found her immediately. He walked to the table and sat down across from her, keeping his jacket on. "Thanks for coming," Claire said. "Thanks for the invitation." His tone was polite. Careful, like he was talking to a client, not someone he'd saved from a car accident. The waitress came by and took their drink orders. Marcus asked for coffee. Claire ordered the same even though she didn't want it. Anything to have something to do with her hands. When the waitress left, silence settled between them. Not comfortable, not hostile. Just careful. "How have you been?" Claire asked. "Fine. Busy week at the shop. You?" "Good. Work's been crazy, the usual." She twisted her napkin. "Insurance finally processed everything from the accident. They totaled my car." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It's just a car." She met his eyes. "I'm alive because of you. That's what matters." Marcus nodded, but didn't say anything. The waitress returned with their coffee. They both busied themselves with cream and sugar, buying time. "Marcus, Claire stopped, started again. "I don't really know how to do this. I asked you here to thank you, but I also wanted to say that I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about my reaction. And I realized that apologizing once isn't enough. I need to actually understand what I did wrong, not just acknowledge it, but really understand it." He studied her face for a long moment. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth. Whatever you need to say, I'll listen." "The truth is that it hurt." Marcus's voice was quiet but steady. "Not because you were scared. Fear makes sense on a dark highway, but because I could see the exact moment you decided I was dangerous. And it had nothing to do with what I said or how I approached you. It was just what I looked like." Claire's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "I know you are. You've said that." He leaned back. "But sorry doesn't change the fact that it happened. Doesn't change that it'll probably happen again with someone else. Sorry doesn't protect me from the next person who sees me as a threat before they see me as human. I can't fix that." "No, you can't." Something in his expression softened slightly. "But you can do better. That's all anyone can do." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Claire felt them settle in her chest, heavy and true. "I want to do better," she said. "I want to be better." "Then be better. Don't just feel bad about it. Actually change." Marcus picked up his menu. "Now let's order. I'm starving." The shift was so sudden that Claire almost laughed. The tension broke, just a little, and for the first time since he'd walked in, Marcus's shoulders relaxed. They ordered. Claire got the salmon, Marcus got a burger. And slowly, carefully, the conversation found easier ground. They talked about work, about the city, about small things that didn't require vulnerability. Marcus told her about a car that had come in with an engine full of acorns, courtesy of an industrious squirrel. Claire told him about a client who'd asked her to predict the stock market based on astrology. And somewhere between the entrees and dessert, Something shifted. The guardedness in Marcus's eyes eased. His smile came more easily. He told her about growing up in Tennessee, about his grandmother who'd raised him, about learning to fix cars from his uncle who'd owned a shop just like Davidson's. Claire told him about business school, about the pressure to succeed, about the loneliness that came with building a life that looked perfect from the outside but felt empty on the inside. "That why you work so much?" Marcus asked. "Probably." Claire stirred her coffee. "If I'm busy, I don't have to think about whether I'm actually happy." "Are you happy?" The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that in years. "I don't know. I thought I was. Now I'm not so sure." Marcus nodded like he understood. "Sometimes it takes something scary to make you realize what matters." "Is that what happened to you?" He was quiet for a moment. "Something like that." He didn't elaborate, and Claire didn't push. They sat in comfortable silence, coffee cooling in their cups, the restaurant emptying around them. When the check came, Claire grabbed it quickly. "This was supposed to be my thank you, remember?" "Next time's on me, then." The words hung in the air between them. Next time, like there would be a next time. Like this wasn't just about guilt and obligation, but something else. Something neither of them had quite named yet. Claire smiled. "Deal." They walked out into the cool evening air. Claire's rental car was parked next to Marcus's truck. They stood there for a moment, neither quite ready to leave. "This was nice," Marcus said. "Better than I expected." "What did you expect?" "Honestly? Awkward apology dinner where we both pretend everything's fine and then never talk again." Claire laughed. "That's exactly what I was afraid of, too." "But it wasn't that." "No, it wasn't." Marcus smiled, a real smile this time, warm and genuine. It transformed his whole face, chasing away the careful guardedness he'd worn all evening. "Good night, Claire." "Good night, Marcus." She watched him drive away, and for the first time in days, the knot in her chest loosened. This wasn't absolution. It wasn't redemption. But it was something. A beginning, maybe. A chance to do better. That was enough for now. Over the next 2 weeks, Claire found herself thinking about Marcus more than she wanted to admit. She'd catch herself wondering what he was doing, if he was having a good day, if he'd been called out to any difficult jobs. Her mind would drift during meetings, replaying moments from their dinner. The way his smile had slowly emerged, the sound of his laugh, the surprising ease that had settled between them by the end of the night. Hannah noticed, of course. "You've checked your phone 4 times in the last 10 minutes?" Hannah said, leaning against Claire's office doorframe. "Waiting for something?" Claire set her phone down. "No, just distracted." "By a certain mechanic?" Heat crept up Claire's neck. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Uh-huh." Hannah grinned. "So, you haven't been hoping he'd text you?" "We had dinner. It was nice, that's all." "But you want there to be more." Claire opened her mouth to deny it, then closed it. Because Hannah was right. She did want more. Not to ease her guilt. That was still there. Probably always would be. But because talking to Marcus had felt different from talking to anyone else in her carefully constructed life. He didn't care about her job or her salary or what she could offer him. He just saw her. Really saw her. And somehow that was both terrifying and wonderful. "I don't know what I want," Claire said finally. "Then maybe you should find out." Hannah pushed off the doorframe. Life's too short to wonder what if. That night, Claire stared at her phone for 20 minutes before finally typing a message. "Hey, I know you said next dinner was on you.
How about this Saturday? She hit send before she could change her mind, then immediately regretted it. Too forward. Too eager. He'd think she was pushy or desperate or... Her phone buzzed. Saturday works. Pick you up at 6? Claire smiled so wide her cheeks hurt. Marcus knew he was playing with fire. Tom had made that clear over their Thursday night beers, delivering a speech about self-preservation and not letting guilt-driven white women into his life. Marcus had listened, nodded, and then ignored every word of it. Because the truth was, he couldn't stop thinking about Claire either. Not about the highway, or the accident, or even her initial fear. About the way she'd listened during dinner. Really listened, without making excuses or getting defensive. About how she'd admitted she didn't have answers and wasn't pretending she did. About the vulnerability in her eyes when she'd talked about her own loneliness. He recognized something in her. Someone trying to be better than they'd been taught to be. Someone willing to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. That took courage, the quiet kind that didn't announce itself. Still, Tom's warning echoed in his mind as he drove to Claire's apartment Saturday evening. Don't go in expecting her to suddenly see you clearly. People don't change that fast. Marcus knew that. Had learned it the hard way more times than he cared to count. But something about Claire felt different. Or maybe he just wanted it to be different. He pulled up to her building and texted that he was outside. A minute later, she emerged wearing a simple dress and jacket, hair loose around her shoulders. She smiled when she saw him, and something in his chest loosened. "Hi," she said, climbing into the passenger seat. "Hi yourself." He pulled back into traffic. "Hope you like Italian." "Love it." The restaurant was small, family-owned, tucked into a neighborhood Marcus had grown up near. The kind of place that didn't advertise because it didn't need to. The food spoke for itself. Mrs. DeLuca greeted him by name, pulled him into a hug, and winked when she saw Claire. "So nice you bring a friend, Marcus. Come, come, I give you the best table." She led them to a corner booth and bustled away to get bread and olive oil. Claire looked around, taking in the mismatched furniture, the photos covering the walls, the warmth that seemed to radiate from every surface. "This place is amazing," she said. "Been coming here since I was a kid. Mrs. DeLuca used to sneak me cannoli when my grandmother wasn't looking." Marcus smiled at the memory. Felt like home. "Your grandmother raised you?" He nodded. "My parents died when I was 8. Car accident. She took me in without hesitation. Raised me right, taught me about dignity and kindness and doing the right thing even when it's hard." His voice softened. "She passed 5 years ago. Still miss her every day." "I'm sorry." Claire's eyes held genuine sympathy. "She sounds like an incredible person." She was. Marcus picked up his menu even though he already knew what he'd order. "What about you? You close with your family?" "With my mom, yes. My dad left when I was 12. Haven't talked to him since." Claire traced patterns on the tablecloth. "My mom did her best, but she was always worried. About money, about safety, about everything. I think that's where I learned to be afraid." Fear isn't always bad. It's kept humans alive for thousands of years. But it's also kept us separate, suspicious. She met his eyes. Afraid of the wrong things. The honesty in her voice made Marcus's throat tight. This was what he'd seen that first night at dinner. Someone genuinely trying to understand, not just apologize. Someone willing to examine the fears they'd inherited instead of defending them. Mrs. DeLuca returned with wine and took their orders. When she left, Marcus and Claire fell into easy conversation.
They talked about books they'd loved, movies that had made them cry, childhood memories that still made them laugh. The kind of getting-to-know-you talk that felt both surface level and deeply intimate. Somewhere between the appetizers and entrees, Claire's hand ended up on the table near his. Not touching, but close enough that Marcus could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. Close enough that moving his hand an inch would close the distance. He didn't move it, neither did she. But the space between them hummed with possibility. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said during dessert. "Sure." "Why did you say yes? To dinner, I mean. You could have just ignored my note, could have moved on and never thought about me again. So why didn't you?" Marcus considered the question. "Honestly, I'm not completely sure. Part of it was curiosity, wanting to see if your apology was real or just guilt talking." He paused. "But mostly because I saw something in you, something genuine, and I guess I wanted to give you a chance to prove me right." "And have I? Proven you right?" He looked at her, really looked at her. Saw the hope and fear and vulnerability in her eyes. Saw someone trying so hard to be better that it almost hurt to watch. "Yeah," he said softly. "You have." Claire's breath caught. For a moment, they just looked at each other, and Marcus felt the shift happening. From apology to friendship to something else. Something neither of them had planned for, but both of them felt. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He glanced at it and frowned. "Sorry, it's work. I need to take this." "Of course." He stepped outside and answered. It was Bill, calling about an emergency road service needed immediately. Marcus listened, agreed to handle it, and hung up with a sigh. When he came back inside, Claire was already standing, concern on her face. "Everything okay?" "Work emergency. I have to go." He pulled out his wallet, but Claire waved him off. "I've got it. You go help whoever needs you." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. This is what you do." She smiled, and there was no frustration in it, only understanding. "Text me when you're done?" "I will." He left reluctantly, glancing back once to see her watching him through the window. Something warm unfurled in his chest. This woman who'd been afraid of him 3 weeks ago now looked at him with trust. With something that might become more if he let it. The emergency call took 3 hours. A stranded family with a blown tire and a crying baby. Marcus worked quickly but carefully, changing the tire, while the father paced and the mother tried to soothe the infant. When he finished, they thanked him profusely, and the father tried to give him an extra $50. "Keep it," Marcus said. "Buy something nice for the baby." He drove home, tired but content, the kind of bone-deep satisfaction that came from helping someone who really needed it. His phone showed a text from Claire. "Hope the call went okay. Tonight was really nice." "Let's do it again soon?" Marcus smiled and typed back. "Definitely. How about next Friday?" Her response came immediately. "It's a date. A date." The word made his pulse quicken. That's what this was becoming, wasn't it? Not just apology dinners or making amends. Real dates with real feelings and real possibilities. The thought should have scared him. Instead, it felt right. Friday came, and then the Friday after that. Dinners became routine, something Marcus looked forward to all week. They tried different restaurants, took walks through parks, spent hours talking about everything and nothing. Claire told him about her work frustrations, and Marcus told her about difficult customers and the satisfaction of fixing something everyone else had said couldn't be fixed. They didn't talk about the highway anymore. Didn't need to. It was there, a foundation they'd built on. But the relationship growing between them was about who they were now, not who they'd been in that moment. One evening, Claire invited him to her apartment for dinner.
She cooked, or tried to, burning the chicken slightly and oversalting the vegetables. Marcus ate it anyway and declared it delicious, which made her laugh so hard she nearly cried. "You're a terrible liar," she said, wiping her eyes. "I'm a great liar. You're just a terrible cook." She threw a dish towel at him. He caught it, grinning, and something shifted in the air between them. The laughter faded. They stood in her small kitchen, 3 feet apart, the burned chicken forgotten on the counter. "Claire," Marcus said quietly. "Yeah?" He crossed the space between them, slowly, giving her time to step back. She didn't. He reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his hand lingering on her cheek. "Is this okay?" he asked. "Yes." He kissed her. Softly at first, testing, and then deeper when she responded, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. She tasted like wine and hope and everything Marcus hadn't let himself want in a long time. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Claire rested her forehead against his. "I wasn't expecting this," she whispered. "Me neither. But I'm glad it happened." "Me too." They spent the rest of the evening on her couch, talking and kissing and learning the shape of each other's laughter. It felt easy, natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. When Marcus finally left around midnight, Claire walked him to the door. "Same time next week?" "Actually," Marcus hesitated. "My grandmother's birthday is next Sunday. I visit her grave every year. I was wondering if maybe you'd want to come with me?" Claire's eyes widened. "Really?" "Only if you want to. It's kind of a personal thing, but—" He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "You've become important to me, and I want to share the important things with you." She kissed him again, soft and sweet. "I'd be honored." Sunday morning dawned clear and cool. Marcus picked Claire up early, and they drove an hour out of the city to the small cemetery where his grandmother was buried. The grounds were peaceful, rolling hills dotted with headstones and oak trees that had stood for 100 years. Marcus led Claire to a simple granite marker. Elizabeth Reed. "Beloved grandmother. Her love lives on." He knelt and placed fresh flowers on the grave, lilies, her favorite. Claire stood back, giving him space for whatever private conversation he needed to have. "Hi, Grandma," Marcus said quietly. "Been a while. Sorry about that. Work's been busy." He adjusted the flowers. "I brought someone to meet you. Her name's Claire. She's—" He paused, searching for the right words. "She's special. Think you'd like her? She's trying really hard to be better, and I know you'd respect that." Claire felt tears prick her eyes. The simple tenderness in his voice, the way he spoke to his grandmother like she could still hear him, it broke something open in her chest. Marcus stood and beckoned her forward. "Come say hi." Claire knelt beside the grave, suddenly feeling inadequate. "What did you say to someone you'd never met, but who'd shaped the man you were falling for?" "Hi, Mrs. Reed," she said softly. "I'm Claire. Your grandson is—" Her voice caught. "He's amazing, kind and patient and good in ways I'm still learning to understand. Thank you for raising him the way you did. Thank you for teaching him about grace." Marcus's hand found hers, squeezed gently. They stayed a while longer, sitting on the grass beside the grave, talking about nothing important. Marcus told stories about his grandmother, her terrible jokes, her insistence on church every Sunday, the way she'd never let him leave the house without a good breakfast. "She sounds wonderful," Claire said. "She was." Marcus smiled. "Stubborn as hell, though. Once she made up her mind about something, good luck changing it." "Wonder where you got that from." He laughed and pulled her close, kissing the top of her head.
They sat like that for a long time, wrapped in each other and the peaceful quiet of the cemetery. On the drive back, Marcus's phone rang. Claire heard his mother's voice, Evelyn, asking about dinner next week. Marcus chatted easily, laughing at something she
said, promising to call her back later. When he hung up, Claire's stomach knotted. Have you told your mom about me? Not yet. Marcus glanced at her. Was planning to? Is that okay? Of course. She twisted her hands in her lap. What will you tell her? That I'm seeing someone, that she makes me happy. And if she asks about how we met? Marcus was quiet for a moment. I'll tell her the truth, all of it. Claire's throat tightened. She won't think much of me. My mom's not judgmental like that. She'll give you a chance. He reached over and took her hand. But yeah, it'll be a conversation. That okay? Yeah. Claire squeezed his hand. I want to meet her. I want to meet everyone who's important to you. Good, because you're important to me too. The words settled warm in Claire's chest. For the first time in weeks, maybe years, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The conversation happened the next morning, though Claire wasn't there for it. Marcus called his mother during his lunch break, intending to tell her about Claire. They chatted about normal things first: his mom's garden, her book club, the new restaurant that had opened near her house. Then Marcus said, Mom, I've been seeing someone. Oh? His mother's voice lifted with interest. Tell me about her. Her name's Claire. She's a consultant. Smart, funny, kind. He paused. White. His mother was quiet for a moment, not disapproving, just processing. How did you meet? Marcus told her the whole story. The highway, the fear, the accident, the apologies, everything that came after. His mother listened without interrupting, which meant she was thinking hard. So she was afraid of you? His mother said finally. Because you're black. Yes. And you're dating her anyway. It's not that simple, Mom. Isn't it? Her voice was gentle but firm. Baby, I love you, and I want you to be happy. But I also don't want to see you hurt. And this girl, Claire, she already hurt you once. What happens when it gets hard? When her friends or family say something? Or when you're in a situation where she has to choose between standing with you or staying comfortable? Marcus had known these questions would come, had asked them himself in the dark hours of night when doubt crept in. I don't know, but I think she's worth finding out. His mother sighed. You've always had such a big heart, Marcus. Sometimes I worry it's too big. You taught me to give people chances, to see the best in them. I did, but I also taught you that you don't owe anyone your pain, not even someone who apologizes nicely. I know, Mom. Do you? There it was again, that question everyone kept asking him. Because from where I'm sitting, this sounds like you're making yourself small so she can feel better about herself. The words hit harder than Marcus expected. That's not fair. Maybe not. But neither is expecting you to teach her how not to be afraid of you. His mother's voice softened. I'm not saying don't see her. I'm saying be careful. Protect yourself. Because at the end of the day, you're my son, and watching you get hurt breaks my heart. Marcus closed his eyes. I hear you, Mom. I do. But I really like her, and I think this could be something real. Then I hope you're right, baby. I really do. They said their goodbyes, and Marcus sat in his truck, staring at nothing. His mother's words circled in his mind, mixing with Tom's warnings and his own doubts. Maybe they were right. Maybe he was setting himself up to get hurt. But when his phone buzzed with a text from Claire, just a picture of a terrible coffee shop latte with the message, Thinking of you. Something in his chest eased. He wanted this, wanted her. And maybe that was foolish, but it was also honest. After years of being careful, of protecting himself, of keeping people at a distance, he was finally letting someone in. That had to mean something.
The next few weeks were the happiest Marcus could remember in a long time. He and Claire fell into a comfortable rhythm. Dinners, walks, quiet evenings at her apartment or his. They talked about everything, their hopes, their fears, the futures they were each trying to build. Claire told him about wanting to start her own consulting firm someday, something smaller and more personal. Marcus told her about his dream of opening his own shop, maybe teaching young people the trade. "You'd be a great teacher," Claire said one evening, curled against him on her couch. "Think so?" "Know so. You're patient and kind, and you actually care about people." She tilted her head to look up at him. "That's rare." Marcus kissed her forehead, feeling content in a way he'd almost forgotten was possible. This was what happiness felt like. Not dramatic or overwhelming, just quiet and steady and right. Then Sunday came, and everything fell apart. Marcus had driven to Claire's apartment early to pick her up for brunch. She'd mentioned her mother would be visiting, and he'd offered to meet her. Figured it was time, given how serious things were getting between them. He knocked on the door, and Claire answered with an apologetic smile. "Mom's running late. Come on in." Marcus entered just as Evelyn Whitmore emerged from the bathroom, phone pressed to her ear. She saw Marcus and her expression flickered, surprise, confusion, and something else. Something that made Marcus's stomach drop. "I'll call you back," Evelyn said into the phone, hanging up. She looked at Claire. "Sweetheart, I didn't know you had company." "Mom, this is Marcus, the man I told you about." Claire's voice was bright, eager. "Marcus, this is my mother, Evelyn." Marcus extended his hand. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Whitmore." Evelyn shook his hand briefly, her smile polite but strained. "Yes, the mechanic who scared her." The words hung in the air like poison. Claire's face went white. "Mom?" "What?" Evelyn looked confused. "That's how you described him when you told me about the accident." Marcus felt something inside him crack. Not break. He'd been broken before, and this wasn't that. But crack, like a window with a hairline fracture that would eventually shatter under the right pressure. The mechanic who scared her. Not the man who saved her life. Not the person she was dating. Just the mechanic who scared her, reduced to that single moment on the highway, like nothing that came after mattered. "I need to go," Marcus said quietly. "Marcus, wait." Claire reached for him, but he stepped back. "I'll call you later." He walked out, closing the door gently behind him, and heard Claire's raised voice starting an argument with her mother. He didn't stay to listen. Just got in his truck and drove, his hands tight on the wheel, his jaw aching from how hard he was clenching it. The mechanic who scared her. He drove without direction, ending up at Mickey's bar, even though it was barely noon. Tom was there, of course he was, nursing coffee and reading the paper. "Little early for you," Tom said, then saw Marcus's face. "What happened?" Marcus told him. All of it. Tom listened, his expression growing darker with every word. "Man," Tom said when Marcus finished. "I'm sorry, that's messed up. She told her mom I scared her. Not that I helped her, not that I saved her. That I scared her." Marcus stared at his untouched beer. "That's how she sees me. After everything, that's still how she sees me." Claire or her mother? Does it matter? Marcus's voice was raw. If Claire saw me differently, really saw me, she wouldn't have described it that way. she'd have led with the man who saved my life, or the guy I'm dating. But no, I'm still just the scary black man from the highway. Tom was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? I don't know. Marcus rubbed his face. I want to believe she's different, that we're building something real. But maybe everyone was right. Maybe I'm just fooling myself. Maybe, Tom said carefully. Or maybe she made a mistake. Said the wrong thing to her mom before she thought about how it sounded. Or maybe that's how she really sees me, and everything else has just been guilt and good intentions. Tom didn't argue. Just sat there, present and solid, while Marcus tried to figure out which hurt more, the possibility that Claire had been lying to him or the possibility that she'd been lying to herself. His phone buzzed. Claire's name appeared on the screen. Marcus stared at it until the buzzing stopped. It buzzed again a minute later, and then again. He turned the phone face down and ordered another beer. Claire's hands shook as she stared at her phone. 3 calls, no answer. 4 texts, all unread. Sweetheart, I don't understand why you're so upset. Her mother sat on the couch, looking genuinely confused. I was just explaining how you met. That's not how we met, Mom. Claire's voice was sharp, angrier than she could remember being at her mother. That's not. He didn't scare me. He tried to help me, and I was afraid because of my own prejudice. There's a difference. You told me you were frightened when he approached your car. I was, but not because of anything he did, because of what I assumed. Claire pressed her hands to her face. And you just reduced him to that moment, called him the mechanic who scared her, like he's not a person, like he's just some character in a story. Evelyn's expression hardened. I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate you talking about Marcus like he's a threat when he's the kindest, most patient man I've ever met. Claire's voice cracked. He saved my life, Mom, and then he gave me a chance when he had every reason not to, and you just undid all of that with one careless sentence. I didn't mean anything by it. That's the problem. Claire was pacing now, unable to stand still. You didn't mean anything. You just said it without thinking, because that's how you see him. As the mechanic. As the black man who scared your daughter. Not as Marcus. Not as the person I love. The word hung in the air between them. Love. She'd said it out loud for the first time, and her mother was the one who heard it. Evelyn's face softened. Oh, sweetheart. I love him, Claire said again, quieter now. And I think I just lost him because you couldn't see past your own fear long enough to treat him with basic respect. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Mom. Marcus knows that better than anyone. Claire grabbed her keys. I need you to leave. I need to fix this if I can, and I can't do that with you here making excuses. Evelyn stood, gathering her purse, looking hurt and defensive in equal measure. I was just trying to protect you. From what? From happiness? From someone who treats me better than I probably deserve? Claire opened the door. I don't need protection from Marcus. If anything, he needs protection from me. From us. From people who can't see him as anything more than our worst assumptions. Her mother left without another word. Claire closed the door and leaned against it, tears streaming down her face. She called Marcus again. Voicemail. Texted him. Please let me explain. Please talk to me. Nothing. She sank to the floor and let herself cry. Ugly, desperate sobs that came from somewhere deep and painful. She'd been so careful. So intentional about changing, about doing better, about proving she could be worthy of Marcus's trust. And one sentence from her mother had destroyed it all. Not just destroyed it, revealed it. Because her mother had learned that language from somewhere. From Claire. From the way she'd told the story before she'd really understood what she'd done wrong. From the fear that had been in her voice before she'd learned to name it for what it was. The mechanic who scared her. God, no wonder. Marcus had left. No wonder he'd looked at her with such pain in his eyes. She'd given him hope that things could be different, and then shown him they weren't. That under all the apologies and dinners and kisses, she was still the woman who'd locked her car door when he approached. Hannah was right. Intention wasn't the same as accountability. And Claire had just learned that lesson in the most painful way possible.